welcome to what is sadly the last bonus episode, I guess, of what we would call season one, Josh,
Sure, sure.
of He's a Porn Addict Now, What the Musical. Um, and we're going to keep talking a little bit about betrayal. And my friend Josh here is a certified betrayal trauma coach. And I am a marriage and family therapist that also has certifications in betrayal trauma. We've touched on this in some previous episodes, but Josh, I want to hear more about, you had alluded to some additional content in the bonus episode. Here we are. Take us home. This is going to be your most powerful content. No pressure. Change everyone's life right now. Josh, go.
Well, thank you for building me up so much, Tony.
You bet.
I think that one of the things I want to drive home, because I think this grows within the betrayed partner. As time goes on, I've noticed some things get better, some things don't. And I see this almost self-flagellation on the
Mm,
part of the woman over time, where she may start coping with other things, but it's, how did I miss this?
yeah.
How did I
Okay.
miss this? And it's a continual, okay, we'll talk about this, we're moving forward, but how did I miss this? How did I miss this? We talked in episode 9 about, does this mean he's gay because he
Yeah.
looked at gay porn? Well, if you don't know he's looking at porn at all, you don't know
Yeah.
how to assess anything to do with anything,
Yeah.
with sexuality or gender or any other thing going on. But I always just try to tell them, this is not alcoholism. This is not drug abuse. This is not food addiction. There are not really physical traits to look for. And that's the thing, is that you did not miss anything, because in most cases there was nothing to find. I mean, aside from maybe the pornography itself, that's what he managed to hide. It's
No
not
kidding.
hard to, he hid a thing. If all I have to do is hide pixels on a screen and I don't have any physical ailments that scream porn addict, even though you're the wife, even though you're the one that's there all the time, you weren't going to see it. I mean, if I learned how to hide it from my mom for the first 9 years where I lived in my parents' house, hiding it from my wife was never going to be a challenge.
Well, I like what you're saying, because and I'm making all these jokes in my head about, yeah, people will say, and I could smell the alcohol on him, or you can, if you
Yeah.
food addiction, I see it in his expanding waistline, but
Hmm.
nobody's ever come into my office and said, and I could smell the porn on him. I mean, I
Yeah.
could tell he had been porning, right?
Yeah. He's got those shifty porn eyes.
Right? No, you're so right that you've built one has built a career on hiding it, so they are very adept at it, and you're right, the other person is not looking for it. So this is it's almost like when we were talking about in the bonus episode of 9, of like, we're wanting to make sense of things that happened in the past. And in reality, it's almost like it happened. Why
Yeah.
didn't I notice it? Well, because you didn't.
I've got to guess. I mean, and I think for me it's 100%. I don't know if it's any different for you, but 100% of my married male clients or long-term relationship clients who are addicts were addicts before they entered the relationship.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they,
Absolutely. Even
they
if they
they
tell
they
their
were
wife they're
full-blown
not, right?
addicts.
Yeah. Because I mean, I will often hear the wife say, "No, he said he never struggled with that growing up," and I think to myself, I mean, that's, you bought it. I mean, but
Yeah.
bless your heart. I mean, that's the kindness of you, wants to then say, but he says he's only looked a couple of times since we've been married, and he never did before. So this just came upon him. And I don't know. You do a lot with betrayal. I have slowly moved not away from it, but it's, I'm doing a lot of other things in my practice, and so that's the part where I feel it breaks my heart. But then it is difficult, because if I'm working with a couple and there's betrayal trauma, it looks completely different than I'm working with the individual person who's struggling with the coping mechanism, versus the person, if I'm one on one with the person that's feeling betrayed, because I'm want to normalize the feelings and stuff, but it's,
Do
yeah,
do you find in your sessions, this is a little bit off, but do you find in your sessions, when you're dealing with a victim of betrayal trauma, that it's easier to deal with them one on one than with the
yeah,
couple?
I do. How about you? I do 100. I really do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think nothing's going to get done when the couple's there.
Yeah, because that's where I feel like let's go with the, again, gender stereotype. She's been betrayed. He's the betrayer. That I find that initially it's worse. Than she's now in so much pain that how does she want to alleviate that pain or get rid of that discomfort? Is she's either is gonna say what is wrong with me, because then he's like, it's not you, and there really isn't anything necessarily helpful or productive going on there. Or if I try, and this is where I often have the struggles, is if the couple then is trying to just even have, okay, let's say that we didn't know the right tools to communicate in the first place, and now I promise I'll go to counseling and I'll really pay attention, says the betrayer. And then they show up there, and then if I even try to have them start to talk about low charge topics, her brain says, okay, but this is my opportunity to be heard. And all of a sudden, she's like, no, I will I'll put the betrayal aside because we want to learn how to communicate more effectively. But then 10 seconds into the narrative of where we're talking about where do you want to go to dinner, all of a sudden, she's like, well, did you take that whore to that restaurant? Is that why
Yeah.
you want to go? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
No, that's what I see a lot of, and I see it as basically especially early on, just a blame session.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like,
And
I'm
what's,
going to
what's,
flog you in front of this guy and you're going to take it.
yeah. And what I think can be difficult is I get the fact that a guy often will say, no, I will take it. But then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't know if you need to be paying me to do this, because I know that this part, while you may feel it's necessary, is inevitably not going to be very helpful in the long run. Um, but I don't know. Do you feel like that's part of the process though?
I think for a lot of people it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think so
think for a
too.
lot of people it is. And I think that this also, in trying to take some of the ownership of this, helps the
Oh,
betrayed believe that they could have done something.
yeah.
They overlooked this. Had they seen this
Had they
5 years
seen it,
ago, they could have nipped it in the bud. When the
yeah.
reality is, 5 years ago, it would probably be the exact same song we're singing right now.
Well, you're so spot on with that too. This is a different thought than that, but I feel like this is one of those. What do you tell people when? So here's a quick narrative. My wife and I and one of my kids were out on paddle boards over the weekend. I'm not very good on the water. It was that's a whole other story. But I look over, my wife is on her
This would
phone.
be the proper time to insert that video of you not having a good time with it.
Okay, that would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
But my wife's on her phone, and I really this was not me being passive aggressive, but I was sharing with my daughter. I was just saying, man, sometimes, because she's a cosmetologist, and so we were talking about the things that you can't not see because of your job. That she looks at people's hair. I have a dentist that look at people's teeth. I'm looking at people's relationships. Or I was saying, what's funny is I just had a session where wife found out about betrayal, and then she'd gone through phone records, and then she was putting dates together, and then she was saying, oh my gosh, when you were texting people at Christmas and you told me you just had a quick work related thing to address, again, you were texting her, weren't you? And so I just said, it's so wild that then when somebody then it finds out what happened, it's I mean, I feel so bad for when they start now going back through the game film, because they all of a sudden feel like everything was a lie, because you texted her 500 times over our anniversary weekend when we were in Monterey, and you hid that. And if I would have known, and so now, and that breaks my heart for them, because they go back and they're like, I thought everything was great. And I want to say, yeah, it's because you didn't know and you weren't looking for it. And he was a master at hiding it.
They become almost, Perry Mason or Sherlock Holmes
Yeah,
after the fact, and it's like that. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the closing scene in Usual Suspects, where he recognizes everything that the story he's just been told is complete fabrication.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
that's kind of it. And I can recall back to when I was an addict, some of the stories I would come up with and then be believed, and then kind of just walk away thinking, oh my God, that was one of my worst performances. That lie
yeah,
doesn't even make sense.
no.
If you play this out, what I just told you should absolutely capture me, but because you're not looking for it.
Yep. But I like what you're saying, because if somebody says, well, what should I be looking for? it's such a odd question because it's well, look for the things that you're not aware of. You know,
Yeah.
look for the things that you have not been seeing so far. And then so here's my hot take. So I have no data. So I really do feel like the way the addict brain works, or the male brain, or but there, that whole concept of compartmentalization, and how we get out of discomfort in a very moment. I really believe this stuff is happening in flow, or it's pretty fluid. So
Hmm.
when I've been kicking this one around recently. So again, hot take, you can poke holes in this. So when she says, so my whole relationship was false, then I say, man, I hear you, and I say more therapeutic things, and then I say, it the moments that seemed like he was present, then in those moments he was being present, and then in those moments where he was texting her, he was not, because I feel like it is more of a flow of, in that moment, the person is texting their affair partner, but then they quickly then almost have this subconscious, okay, wait, I don't do that, I'm here with my kids, hey family, let's go do
Right.
more things. And then here's the text, I compartmentalize, I do that. And I know from my men's group where a lot of guys say that they were almost more present because they wanted to make sure that it looked like they were present, because they felt guilty about the times that they weren't. And I'm not saying that that's like so it's a good thing. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm grateful, yeah. So somebody didn't turn it off when I said that, thinking, "Are you crazy?" Because we're just bringing up data, but because I do feel like now this goes back to, but you're not being your genuine self, and so then I will have people even say, that's the part where then all of a sudden the kid says, "Hey, can I have ice cream before dinner?" And the husband feels so guilty. He's like, "I think that'd be a great idea. How about you, hon? Like, little Kevin here's got a great idea. That's great, Kevin. Let's all have ice cream. See how good of a dad I am." To get rid of that guilt, and which I almost feel like then when he's in the confines of his own, the chambers of his brain, and he's like, yeah, did they buy it? That wasn't my best performance,
Yeah.
and I feel kind of gross now that we had ice cream for dinner, and now I'm never doing that again. And what's wrong with me? And then when my brain goes to beat myself up, then it says, I think we need a dopamine dump. So you know how we can get that? Let's look at porn. Now it'll be the last time. Don't get me wrong, but and then
Yep.
repeat the cycle. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Again and again and again.
Yeah. Um, Joshua, do you want to say some incredibly poignant and powerful closing remarks to sum up this entire season? And
Yeah. This has been fun. This has been the project that continues to have life beyond everything else. And I actually think this project we started on 6 years ago or so when we started
yeah.
writing this book, whenever it was. Um, this is by far the book that has sold far better for me than any other. And
Okay.
still to this day, um, I have women tell me that they've read this book, or this is the one that they want to get next, or
Mm,
that there was just not a lot of stuff out there when we first released this. And that what I hear from a lot of people is thanks that it's so accessible. And I
yeah.
hope that this podcast has been that same way. You know,
Mm,
we can discuss this, at a clinical level, but the average person isn't going to, respond to that. And I think the only way we're going to tackle some of these issues is if we start talking about them like normal people.
yeah.
And something like pornography here, you know, we've done between the regular episodes and bonus episodes, we've done, probably 10 to 12 hours of recording here. We have not been graphic, I think,
No.
one time. And that's one of the things that I want to drive home to, whether you are the addict or whether you are the betrayed, is that if it's a matter of being nervous and scared to
Mm,
talk about pornography as a subject, we kind of all get what pornography is. We get what it is as a concept. You don't have to uh, be afraid to talk to your husband or your boyfriend because you saw gay porn on his computer,
yeah.
or because you saw another type of pornography you don't understand. You don't you don't want to bury your head because, oh well, he certainly doesn't fit the stereotype of who a porn addict is, even though there is no stereotype anymore.
Right.
Um, I think that what we have to recognize is that it comes back down to communication.
Mm.
And you've got to ultimately, no matter whether you stay or go, no matter whether this is resolved peacefully or horribly, you need to be able to learn to communicate. And you do not have to worry that you're going to have to be some kind of sexual pervert to
Yeah,
bring this up, because
absolutely.
you don't have to talk specifics. You can,
No.
this pornography in general can be talked about. And pornography is not one of those words that just because you say it out loud means that you are in favor of it.
Right.
And I get a lot of people who seem to have that kind of hang up. Um, it's a thing, it's out there, it's what we're dealing with these days. My dad tells stories of the 1950s having to hide under desks in school because of air raid drills and practicing for nuclear war. And we don't do that anymore. Times change. And unfortunately, here in the 2020s, you have to talk to your kid about pornography addiction. You have to find out what your partner's stance on pornography is, what their history is with it, like you do with so many things.
Yeah.
It's just a new thing that we have to add to the list. And I think that if we don't, we're leaving out, whether we're a user or whether we're the spouse or partner. I think that we need to, as a society, become more pornography literate. And hopefully, this book has helped people.
I like what you said. I haven't thought of it that way before about, hey, what's your stance on parenting? What's your stance on finances? What's your stance on politics? What's your stance on pornography? And it doesn't mean that it just needs to be a conversation, and it can, and it's not going to be somebody's like, I think it's the most amazing thing in the world, but it's the, hey, how do we handle this, or how do we talk to the kids about it, or do you, yeah, I appreciate it. And if you need help with a professional, then that there's nothing wrong with that either. If it is awkward because you don't have the tools to do it, that doesn't mean don't do it, but you can go reach out to somebody that can help, like a Josh.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the case. And many times I will talk to somebody 3 to 5 times and then tell them, okay, it's time for you to go to a therapist.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what this process is now. You can talk now. I've given you the tools. Now it's time to move on, because I also believe that healing comes from many people.
yeah, I think so too.
I look at
Yeah.
my entire time as a porn addict, and I bet there's 12 to 15 people who have helped me along the way,
Mm,
seriously. And looking for any one person, especially if that person is your addict partner, to be the
mm.
support, you've got to look elsewhere.
Yeah, you do.
Um,
Yeah,
and just because you are an innocent bystander, just because you didn't sign up for this, doesn't mean you don't still have to deal with it.
yeah. Okay, we will see people next on season 2.